Hello, Sophia.
Hi Miriam, how are you?
I'm really good. Thank you so much for joining me today for this conversation.
Absolute pleasure. It's a real pleasure to be here celebrating Lesbian Visibility Week, isn't it?
It is indeed. I think, day three we're on now, halfway through.
Are we feeling the lesbian love? I think I am.
Definitely, definitely.
I didn't mean that to sound as creepy as it did. I'm so sorry.
It doesn't sound creepy. It's fine. That's just more awkward. This is going on. So anyone who doesn't know me, for a start, my name's Miriam Faber. I am the head of content for Facebook across Northern Europe. My day-to-day job essentially is helping businesses connect with our products, platforms, and communities. And the other part of my job is I'm one of the co-leads for our Pridat employee resource group, which is to support the Lgbtq community. Sophia, do you want to intro yourself and your very high-profile, glamorous job?
I don't think it's either of those things, but bless you for saying it. So hi everyone, I'm Sophia Papadopoulos. I'm a senior business analyst at Kantar currently, although I'm moving to a new company called Third Bridge in a few weeks. Very exciting. I came to tech a little bit later in my career. I started out at Kantar and other companies as a market researcher before realizing that it wasn't making me as happy as I felt my work should. And I decided to figure out what I wanted to do, what kind of job I wanted, and landed in the world of business analysis, which I definitely enjoy. I feel it brings out, lets me use a lot more of my skills that I, love using and that sort of thing, and helping, like understanding what my clients really want and then getting that built. There's no better feeling for me. But the other thing I'm really passionate about is diversity and inclusion. And much like Miriam, I founded and have been leading the Pride at Kantar group, which is our version of yours. It's Kantar's LGBTQI community as well.
Fantastic, and it's so nice to sort of meet someone who has similar kind of aspects to their role, because they're actually, I think, is part of why we're having this conversation today. There probably aren't a huge amount of visibly out lesbians in tech. And it's something, I think one of our lovely friends over at Diva sort of, shared with us ahead of this conversation, saying as a quote, which is, if you can't see it, you can't be it. And that kind of really rung true for me, because I think on a personal note, growing up, I definitely didn't see people like me, women of color, gay women of color, mums who are gay women of color. In technology, it kind of seemed like an impossibility because there was no one. And I would say, equally still looking around boardrooms, as progressive and inclusive as Facebook is, it's still very difficult to see both people having conversations. So I'd love to kind of learn maybe like a little bit, Sophia, about, you talked to, obviously, you didn't always start off as a business analyst. You didn't, this wasn't your bag from day dot. So I'd love to maybe, just hear a little bit from you about, what was your journey? What were your ambitions and how did you land here?
So like most people, if you talk to anybody who works in market research, 99% of them will tell you that they fell into it backwards. And that was very much the case with me. And I realized, I was good enough at it. I wasn't great. I wasn't terrible. I could get by. Do you know what I mean? And there was just something about it that didn't really bring me joy. And I was very lucky to have an absolutely great mentor a few years ago who kind of talked me through some of the thought processes I could go through to kind of figure out what next. And at the time, I was still very much, screw this, I'm jacking my job in, I'm going to go fulfill my childhood dream of being a magician. Do that's how out there I was. Kind of, I don't know what I want to do. All I know is I don't want to do this. So a lot of my journey was around, and I spent about 6 months kind of thinking through, okay, what is it that I think I'm good at? What are the skills that I think I use well? What are the skills I want to improve on? And what are the things I want to do more of? And for me, it was, okay, I don't necessarily want to be working directly with clients in the way that I used to, okay, but I still want to understand what they want to do. I want to create stuff, but I'm not a maker. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, the idea of going into engineering would have been, you know, it was on the table for a short time, but actually it wasn't quite for me. I don't have the brain to kind of be able to do that. So just kind of working through that whole thing. And there was a funny point where once I'd accepted that I wasn't going to be doing that job forever, I was like, chill, okay, I can put up with it. I can put up with the bits I don't like, because I know that while I don't have the end date, I know that there's a different destination. Yeah. And I can just sit back. And I was really fortunate that actually Kantar were hiring business analysts at the time. I was already in the business, and you know, for me that was the best transition. It's a weird industry to work in, market research, and Kantar is a weird place within it as well. You know, it has been historically a bunch of federated companies who have just been bought out and all of that sort of thing. So understanding how that works put me on such a great footing to be able to learn this new industry. And the skill sets were very similar, you know, between a business analyst and a market researcher. I think the skill sets are very similar. So I'm very lucky. I feel like I've definitely landed on my feet, and then, you know, new job, third bridge, that's where I'll really be testing myself. I think kind of learning a whole new industry, influencing a new company, all of that sort of thing. I can't wait. It's going to be great fun.
Amazing. And I love, obviously, you know, this idea of pushing yourself and, you know, taking time. You know, you talked about 6 months, you know, to think about what it is you wanted to do, and you had some great mentors over the years. And I think that's something that I've definitely benefited from, you know, is people outside of my own organisation, whether that be a friend, it could be someone who works in a completely different industry, and I've definitely got a lot from mentoring. And in terms of, you know, thinking about that specifically, mentoring, you know, if you don't have people to help you on that journey of identifying other things you might be interested in, if you've got a bit of career fatigue, say, have you got any kind of, you know, resources, things that you kind of go to, even if it's like websites or books and things that you read, where have you kind of like got your inspiration from when you've kind of felt a little bit like, oh, I know I want something different, but I don't know quite what?
I think Google is really helpful. Sorry to say that to someone who works at Facebook.
It's fine.
I think you know, there are loads of resources online. I think LinkedIn is incredibly helpful as well. So one of the things that I did was, once I identified my skills, I literally trawled LinkedIn for all of the jobs and figuring out, you know, which ones are using the types of skill sets that I'm looking to be building on and that sort of thing. I think that's a really easy way of kind of doing it. And sort of identifying, that's how I ended up in like this sort of business analyst role, because I think before that I didn't even know what it was. I didn't even know it existed. So that was kind of my big one, I think, to figure out what that job title is that I'm looking for. And yeah, just online, there are loads of great books out there and stuff, you know, but I've been reading one. I'll show you. It's this one, Your First 100 Days by Neve O'Keefe. I'm well into it, obviously.
You're not getting commission.
No, I'm not. But you know, I read it, and there was a lot of it where I was a bit like, okay, please stop talking now. But there were loads of points in there where I was like, actually, that's a really good way of thinking about my first 100 days in a new role and how I can have a big impact. There's loads out there to kind of, and I wouldn't say I'm an expert in that at all. And I think, like you said, talking to your friends about kind of what it is you want out of your career and all of that sort of thing, I think that's really important. Have a conversation with yourself as well. Like the realization that I don't like what I do. Because we all coast through life sometimes, don't we? And it's when you're like, oh, actually, I don't like this. What do I do differently? That it's a tough one to go through, I think.
It is something that you've kind of just used the word impact, which I think's such a big word, and it's something that we definitely at Facebook kind of talk about a lot. You know, we've got posters and slogans that say focus on impact, and it can seem quite daunting, you know, to say, gosh, I've got to make an impact every single day when I'm here. God, what on earth am I going to do? How have I got enough time, you know? But I think what's really helpful is to define what impact means to you. And I think one of the things that I've sort of learned in my journey in this tech world, especially, and I definitely didn't start in tech either, is and I use these words, God, everyone hears them, it's like, bringing your whole self to work and all that kind of thing. And for me, there definitely was a light bulb moment when I kind of realized that my, dare I call it, my power, my influence, the impact I could make was genuinely being myself. And that sounds so weird. And even when I say it out loud, I think, what does that even mean? That sounds so strange, doesn't it? But kind of going back to, talking about LGBTQ women in tech, I was able to bring perspective to a room full of, as you referenced, engineers, a room full of people who are literally making decisions about our product that other people couldn't have a perspective on. Well, why should we launch a new bunch of stickers that look this certain way? I'm like, well, you haven't included someone who's non-binary. You haven't included someone who is a person of color. Well, whatever it might be, and I think knowing that you have got a valid and important voice that can genuinely make a difference is life-changing, I think, when you work in the tech sector. And I don't say that lightly because, I've seen the direct impact, when I've kind of been brave enough to go, I've actually got a point of view on this thing. But I think we definitely need more of that. And I think even, the importance of LGBTQ women and non-binary people in technology is so important. And I know that you recently done some research, haven't you, with Stonewall and with Diva. And I'd love to kind of know, what are some of the insights that you've gained around the workplace and around, the importance of these communities in the tech sector? Because you're an expert in this world, and I'd love to know, what are your findings? Where are the places that people go, gosh, I think I could actually take that challenge on, or I see that happening in my workplace.
Yeah, I think there's a few things you've touched on there. I think within technology, it's in the blurb for this panel, this discussion, right, around having, like, it is a male dominated industry, right? Like, you look around, I look around where I work. I mean, right now I'm at home, but if I look at all of my colleagues, the majority of them are men, and the majority of the women who work here are cis het women, which is great. But it's really hard, and to your point earlier, it's really hard to be something when you don't see it right there. I sat in on one of our technology leadership meetings a few weeks ago to talk about diversity and inclusion, and I was really struck by the fact that out of the whole of the senior leadership team, there was only 3 women, and one of them was HR. Which made, I found that really, really shocking. And if I think a little bit about kind of some of the results that we've seen, we saw that 3 in 4 women are open about their sexual orientation in the workplace, but 27% of those have been made to feel uncomfortable in the workplace, which I think is quite significant. We're saying that a large proportion of people, of LGBTQI women and non-binary people, have been made to feel uncomfortable. And I know I've heard comments in and around the office, in and around the workplace, that I'm a bit like, oh, I'm not sure I'm comfortable with that. And even more so, kind of upsettingly, only 28% of those who had been made to feel uncomfortable felt empowered enough to report it to management or to HR. And I think that's really important. And that's where things like our 2 LGBTQI plus employee resource groups can really help. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's, giving a voice to those communities that are often unheard, I think is, a big part of our role to sort of, leading those ERGs. We actually have someone else who's going to join our conversation, which we're super happy with. Welcome, Asia. Hello.
Hello, good morning.
Well, good morning. It's good afternoon.
Well, good evening.
It's good evening. Lovely to meet you. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I cannot complain. Happy to meet you both.
Happy to meet you too. So this is the first time that I've ever met you. Sophia, have you both met before?
No, we've not.
There we go. Aisha, would you be happy to introduce yourself to us and just a little bit about what you do, and we can kind of welcome you to the conversation?
Okay, so I'm Asia. I am a data and AI specialist here at Microsoft. I'm a 16-year military veteran, combat veteran, and advocate for women, advocate for the LGBTQIA plus community in tech. I just want to see us win all the time. But
Love it.
I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be here.
Love the intro. Thank you. So we were literally just having a conversation around, the importance of being seen at work, and being open, and the importance of that. And there's this line that was introduced to us at the beginning of this conversation, which was, if you can't see it, you can't be it. Which I think Sophia and I definitely, agree with. And I'd love to know, I guess maybe you are wearing a hat, but many hats, so you can answer this conversation. I guess, there's probably lots of assumptions, good or bad, around being out in the military. So it would be great if you feel comfortable to maybe, you can share with us some of those experiences. And obviously this is an LGBTQ and in tech, conversation. So also at Microsoft, do you feel that there are many women specifically from the community that are out and that can inspire and that can lead? We'd love to kind of hear from you.
So that is a multifaceted question, but I'll tie them both together.
Well, we've only got you now, so I've thrown
okay.
them at you.
That's okay.
I'll sit back for a minute. I
got you. So I will tell you that it was terrifying being gay in the military, because I joined in 2000, where you couldn't be. And if anyone found out, or if they suspected, or if you upset someone, they could just kick you out. And that was your career. And I knew as a child that I wanted to be in the military. So for me, it was actually important to serve. And I felt like my sexuality should not hinder it. But at the same time, I wasn't willing to be like, this is not what I want to do, because I said that I wanted to serve. I wanted to honor my grandfather's memory and serve as well. And then at some point, something happened, right? 2011, they decided to do the repeal.
Yeah.
And at the time I was dating someone, engaged to someone, and we decided to quietly get married. And, you have to turn your paperwork in because now you're married. And it was like, oh, you're gay. And people started knowing, and people started seeing us together. I started bringing her out and bringing her places with me. But then California did this wonderful thing where they reversed it. So then we weren't married anymore. But now because it wasn't legal, now here everyone knows that I was gay. And I'm like, I'm going to get kicked out. The last 12 years of my career are going to be gone. And I was scared. When you work so hard for something and you're almost at your finish line, and to say that I wanted it all. I wanted it all. I wanted the career. I wanted the family. I wanted it all. And I felt like, just like how everyone else has the right to the opportunity for it, so should I. So it was, and 6 months later, again, they reversed it.
That in itself has got to be, excuse the language, but like a head fuck, right?
Absolutely.
You're out, you're not out, you can be out, you're not out. Like, I can't imagine what that would do to you mentally, let alone living through the reality of the paperwork and the legality side of it, like emotionally, how that translates into how you're even communicating with your community, your colleagues, your family.
But it also gave me the opportunity to truly see my first hint of allyship in action in the military. Because if you're not married, you can get orders somewhere else and they don't have to send your spouse with you. So at the time, right in between the time where it got repealed again, it got reversed, I got orders. And I could have went this way and she was going to stay in California. I was going to the East Coast. And, my commanding officer came and he sat with me and he said, look, it's a shitty situation. He's like, but this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to cancel your orders and I'm going to keep you here so y'all can be together, because what I don't want to do is separate a new family. Wow. And I was just like, all right, that's one hurdle.
Yeah.
And that was the first time I really, because before that, your commanding officer can be like, "You're gay, get out of my military." And
just to be clear, your commanding officer was man?
A black man.
Yeah.
A black male, African American male.
Yeah.
And I love him to this day. That's
are you still friends? Like
we are.
Yeah. Wow, I love that.
That checks in.
I love that.
And then on the flip side, when I came to Microsoft, I said I would walk in my absolute truths. You know, during my interview, I made sure that I dropped that, "Hey, my wife is in Japan right now. She is active duty. She's in the military. I would like to see and be near my family." Everything that I couldn't have when I was in the military, I made sure I laid on the table for Microsoft.
Yeah.
And, you know, my hiring manager at the time who was interviewing me, she was like, "Oh, that's not a problem." She was like, "How about this? How about when you get to Redmond, we give you the Asia Pacific region, so that way when you go there for work, your family can be together." And
That's amazing.
I was like, this is a thing. This is a thing. And it was great. You know, I saw my wife almost every single week because I was able to fly back and forth. My daughter came with me. We flew back and forth. And when she came back to California, when she got orders back to California, it was, "Hey, my wife's back. Help." And it was, they helped me find a team that was 100% remote. We all work from home. And, you know, I really get to be with my family every day. So I couldn't be more grateful. Since I've been here, I've seen leadership at all levels and all acronyms or all letters of the LGBTQIA plus community. Literally every single one of them. There's a leader somewhere at Microsoft for it. And we talk and we have the discussions and we have the hard conversations and we hold people accountable. And that's been my experience since I've been here. And even the people who I've held accountable, it's never ill received. And it's just been a great learning and growing experience because I joined the military at 17 and it was all that I knew. So I actually never knew a workplace or workplace environment that can be accepting, that can be tolerant, that can be empathetic. So
well, it sounds like you've had an incredible experience, I think, you know, between those two different careers. And I'm so happy for you that obviously you found a home at Microsoft who have been so, you know, I guess like involving of your family and given so much time and space for you to connect with those people. Like Sophia, you know, from your own experience as well, you know, working at Kantar, do you feel like you've had that same, I guess, like visibility of leadership and allyship and community within that space? And obviously you've talked about leading the ERG for your Pride Act community, but on a day-to-day, do you see it? Do you feel it? Do you have to seek it out?
I think many organisations would be quite different to Microsoft, if I'm honest. I don't think I see any senior LGBTQIA people, whether they be women or men. There's certainly none that I'm aware of. And, you know, I wouldn't name here, but, you know, for me to be saying that, for me to say I don't know them. I know of one who was, but wasn't out in the workplace and they left the business. But I completely agree, Aisha, with your point around, I want to bring my whole self to everything I do. I am a terrible liar. My wife will attest to that one. I am awful at lying. And I don't want to have to come into a workplace and kind of pretend and refer to my partner and ungender them, because that's just not who I am. I will lose track very quickly of who I haven't told. And exactly like you, Aisha, I definitely mention it in every interview I've been to in the last 10 years. My wife, my girlfriend, whatever, you know, very happily married now, always mention them. And there have been jobs that I've walked away from because of the reaction I got. And it's never anything kind of explicitly homophobic, right? Like very few people would be silly enough to do that. But it's the kind of the straightening out the, oh, okay.
So you said girlfriend.
Yeah, exactly. And just that you just get this thing, right, where you're like, I don't want to work for you. I don't want to work for you. It's cool, but I don't want to work. I'm not going to fight this battle. But the battle I will fight is being that visible person.
Yes.
And I think that's what's so important. So where I don't have senior leaders who are exactly from my community, I am incredibly lucky to be surrounded by leaders who are allies and beyond. Do you know what I mean? Like, and that's where I kind of really count their support, and that's been amazing for me, at least. You know, we've got one of our executive board members is our executive sponsor for our group, and she's absolutely amazing. She's a multi-award winner, Caroline Frankham, in case you're wondering. She's awesome. And she's just been brilliant. She's been such a great person to kind of help us champion and helping me learn how to lead an ERG. Like, there wasn't any within Kantar before we started Pride at Kantar, and now there's lots of them. And I love that we've inspired that. And I love that I've inspired, you know, lots of my colleagues to feel more accepted. And some of them have actually come out, you know, because they saw this group. And I love that. And I think that's what I try and be. You know, it goes a little bit beyond the, if you can't see it, be it. I think you have to be brave enough to be it, because not everybody has that. And that's okay. That's not a bad thing. But if you are brave enough to be it, 100% be it. And it can be quite a lonely place, I think. You know, Miriam, you're one of the few people I've met who also leads an ERG. And that's amazing. I think there is an opportunity to build a network of networks, right? Because people want to they want to get together. They want to be able to talk about these things. It's something we were talking about off air, wasn't it, Miriam, about some of the more industry-led employee resource groups that I think have a massive role to play, especially over here in the UK. I think they're very active in the US, but I don't know that I see as much from them over here. And I think that's a real gap that we have here in the UK around building that out. So that was a really meandering answer, wasn't it?
No, not at all. Not at all. I think... just thinking about one of the themes that have kind of come out from you both as being this theme of allyship. And I don't know about you both, but some of the questions I get, which I'm so thankful for, you know, is how do we engage with the community more? Like, we want to learn, we want to be involved, we want to support, but sometimes you kind of go, I'm not here to educate everyone. There's plenty of resources out there. Go read, go watch, go whatever. But like, we're not here as like a pool of knowledge, and also we're one voice of a whole community. So I guess I would love to know, you know, if you get those same questions, what do you tell people? Because it's not a terrible, you know, it's a lovely question, you know, being glass half full, fantastic. Yes, we need allies, and we've seen how powerful allyship can be, but what can people do to show allyship, to give support? Now, Aisha, I'll go to you because you're kind of obviously laughing.
I actually had this come up this week actually. And I had someone go, well, I just didn't know what to say. And I didn't know how to be an ally to you and an ally to that person. And it was very simple for me. I said, check it out. When someone is spewing hate, at that point in time, if you want to align yourself to the hate, then align yourself to the hate. But you don't stay silent and allow them to keep the hate going while saying, I want to be an ally to the person who's on the receiving end. You have to make a decision, because it costs $0 to just be like, hey, not here. Hey, we don't tolerate that. Hey, that's not okay. That if someone has to tell you to do that, I don't understand. I do not. You want me to give you this grand, oh, you can do this if you do this, and it costs $0 just be a decent human being. That's it. That's it.
But isn't it a little bit simpler as well, that there is no manual to being gay, to being gender non-binary, to being trans? Like, I wish there was, because I might have done a better job of it. I'm okay. I'm very happy. But you know what I mean? Like, there is no manual. So how can you expect me to answer all of your questions?
Sophia, do you have kids?
Not yet, no.
Do you want children?
Maybe one day. Maybe. We'll see.
Do you have pets?
We got a dog.
You have a dog. Have you ever read a manual on dogs?
No.
You just learned as you went, right?
Exactly, but that's my point.
And that's
so how can anyone expect me to answer all of these questions that they have? And but I'll tell you one thing that I have noticed is since the Black Lives Matter movement really kicked off last year, I get fewer of the questions of what does it mean to be gay, all of that sort of thing. And I think it's because one of the key lessons that came out of that.
No one has actually asked you that, Sophia.
Yes.
Yeah, of course I have. But one of the key things that came out from that is it is not a person of color's job to educate you as a white person. It is your job to educate you. And I took a lot out of that as well. I always consider myself an ally to the BIPOC community, but I've learned so much. I did so much education. I still got a long way to go. Do you know what I mean? But I think that has changed a lot of people's minds on how they find information. And I think that's really important. It's not perfect. You still get stupid questions. You still get intrusive questions, but it's better than it was.
In 2021, I stare at people and go, did you Google this before you ask? Because I can answer clarifying questions. But if you're asking me the initial, like, hey, I did some research. I saw this and I saw this. Which one is more aligned? And I can be like, all right, go with the latter or go with the first one. But not, excuse me, how does it feel to be a gay, Black, female, veteran, Hispanic,
oh my Lord,
first generation? My intersectionality is not a playground. So I don't do the oppression Olympics with people. It's not, oh, but I'm this and I'm that. It's like, we're all in this boat.
Yeah.
Are you paddling? That's,
yeah.
Do you have your paddle? Okay, cool. How can we continue to work together to move forward? That's it. Simple. At least in my mind, it's simple. Like, it's kind of like being a parent, you know? You don't allow your kids to just run off and just say whatever they want to just random people. Hey, lady, you look fat. Hey, sir, you'll be like, hey, that's not okay, right? To some extent, there's some parents who probably just let it go. But for the most part, you know, it would be safe to say that most people would stop their children from randomly just insulting people. So why would you allow your colleagues, your family, your friends to do the same thing in your presence?
And I think and that's where I think it becomes a little bit trickier in the tech industry as well, is because it is quite a homogenous world. Do you know what I mean? It's very male dominated. It's very white dominated. It's very straight dominated. You know, there are other things within that as well, but
I always err on the side of the straight dominated because I look at everybody and I just, even if it's not so much, everybody has something. Yeah. Everybody has something. And I remember doing I did a conference in Orlando about two years ago. And there was a heterosexual white male who stood up. He was like, I don't feel like I should be here. And
cool story, bro.
yeah. And I was like, okay, well, what's wrong with you? And he said, what? I said, what's wrong with you? I said, if you feel like you shouldn't be here, that means there's something wrong with you. And you're trying to validate your existence in this space. So instead of, you know, telling us that you're a heterosexual white male, he gave his list. He said, I'm physically fit. I make good, you know, he makes over 150K a year. Okay, cool story, bro. What is wrong with you? And he stood there for a minute. And then he just dropped, like his whole chest dropped. He was like, I suffer from anxiety and deep depression, clinical depression. And he just turned into a whole different person in that moment. And it was a very vulnerable moment, but it was like, everybody is battling something. Everybody has something. You know, I always joke and be like, some people carry purses, some people carry backpacks, other people have U-Hauls hooked up to their souls, but people are really dragging and unpacking things. So even amongst our differences, there are other things that really bring us together. But if you just focus on that, if Gary lost his wife and Stephen lost his husband, are they both not going through grief at the same time? Does the heterosexual man deserve more sympathy and empathy than the homosexual one? And I've been in that situation where I had someone who met and married someone in a 3-day span.
Wow.
And I lost someone I was with for 6 years. But the person with the 3-day span, the heterosexual, got the time off, got all, and I went straight through the roof. I was like, are you serious? Your 2-week fling in the club was worth more than my 6-year investment. And of course it was pain talking, but it was like, how can you all make decisions based on this small facet of someone's life? I was pissed. But it just shows you, like, ignorance runs rampant. And if we focus on the things that unite us, then we would stop using, people's isms or people's whatever is special about them to divide us.
Yeah. Do you think that that's an issue that we have within the tech industry specifically as well? Like, I sometimes feel like it's accentuated here because there isn't as much balance as there is in other industries. Do you see what I mean? So there's kind of the extremes, and you don't get that sort of check and balance as much as I would like to see.
I can't lie to you. I am very, very jaded on that answer because of the position that I'm in. And what I mean is, I came from the military.
Yeah, fair.
I couldn't be me. I couldn't. And then I came here, and it's just like, I saw one of the biggest pride parties I've ever seen in my life. And I'm from New York City at Microsoft, on a Microsoft campus. And I was like, I love it here. I love it here. So I am jaded in that fact, because when it comes to me and my tech experience, I don't want to
the best.
I don't want to date any other companies at this point, because I know. But
they've got an employee for life. Look at this.
But think about it.
But actually, no. Like, I'm saying that slightly flippantly, but I think that there is actually a lot to be said about this. Allowing people, or celebrating people, even better, to be themselves, to let people, thrive and shine by being themselves. You will get the best out of people. Aisha, like, we're kind of joking about it, but the fact is, you've literally just said, I don't want to work at another company because this company essentially, and I'm totally putting words in your mouth a little bit, this company accepts me for who I am. They're celebrating who I am. They welcome me with open arms. Yes. And I think they've
helped you find the right way of working for you and your family, right? Like, that's huge.
And you don't find that everywhere. It's like, why, if I'm happy, if I feel valued, if I feel accepted, I feel encouraged, I'm able to help other people find their voice. Every time I speak at a Microsoft event, I have people who reach out to me who are like, hey, I'm thinking about telling my team, can you help me? Yeah, sure, let's do it. And just, thank you, you inspired me. Me and my wife are expecting our first baby. What do I do? Read the manual.
There isn't one.
But for babies, there are books. There are books you can read.
There are books. This is true. There are books.
I would say, actually, that's one thing I think the three of us do have in common, right? Which is, we all work for tech companies which have given us and our communities that space to thrive. And, while we're saying, gosh, the tech company, our tech industry, perhaps is male dominated or has been male dominated, the fact that we are all here together having this conversation because we actually have those safe spaces, I think it goes a long way to show that the tech industry might be a little bit further ahead in this space, right? So while we might not see it in a day-to-day, I know we're all not in our offices right now, but while we might not see it on a day-to-day, perhaps the tech industry has woken up a little bit more than other industries in this space.
I think so. And I think that's one of the attractions of tech. I always say that tech is the equalizer. You can be gay, straight, black, white, Asian, homeless, blind, deaf. You can be autistic. You can be any you can be on any spectrum, be a part of any community. You can have certain disabilities. Actually, you can have many disabilities, but it doesn't stop your capabilities. It doesn't stop you. It doesn't stop you from being able to code or being able to build or to be a product designer or to do any of that. I think it's a beautiful, beautiful. It's just a place because everyone's voice is important. How can I design a product for people with no hands if they don't have a voice?
Yeah. So I'd love to, let's find out actually, like, we didn't even cover this off. What do you do at Microsoft? What do you do at Microsoft? Apart from advocating so well for them.
So you caught me at a very good time because I am transitioning. I was a data and AI specialist here and now moving back into a senior program manager role on the Azure engineering team. So I love being a PM. I love being a PM. I love being customer facing. I love talking to people. If you can't tell, I love talking to people. So it gives me the opportunity to talk to customers all over the world and just build those relationships, hear their stories.
Nice. Cool. Anyone else? Please go ahead.
Tell me about, this is for Sophia. Tell me about your challenges, because I have not been able to get to the UK in the last 2 years because we're in a panorama.
Yeah.
But what have you seen? Well, how has the pandemic either progressed or regressed the movement?
The movement more generally, you mean? I think that's a really interesting one. So I can't remember if you were here for it when we were talking earlier about the insight survey that Kantar's done. So we've done this in conjunction with Diva and Stonewall, who are the LGBTQI charity over here in the UK. It's something we did last year. We've done it again this year. And one of the things that we really focused on for this year's survey was around the impact of COVID-19. And, you know, there's a lot of stuff that I was like, well, yeah, because everyone is like that. So we had like 4 in 5 LGBTQI women and non-binary people were saying that they were able to connect with others, you know, via the phone, video calls, all of that sort of thing. We saw that quite a lot more had attended online LGBTQI events rather than previously where it was all face-to-face. And I think in the tech industry, I don't know if anyone's ever been to any of the tech events for the LGBTQI community. It is gay men. And that can be quite an intimidating thing. You're walking into it as a woman. That can be pretty intimidating. Quite a lot of them were willing to attend face-to-face events in the future. But I think the real things that kind of hit me quite hard were around the impact of COVID and how it's impacted on people's mental health and their well-being, that it's obviously really scared a lot of people, right? Like it's been a consistent 12, 15 months of, oh my God, what the hell is going on? Right. And that takes its toll on everyone. There comes a point where you're like, I live in nothing but fear anymore. Mm-hmm. And that was accentuated, especially amongst people, you know, and what I found interesting was people were recognizing that they weren't okay. And they were trying to access mental health support. And obviously here in the UK, we have the wonderful NHS who support everyone and everything. But when it comes to mental health, the offering isn't always great. And actually, a lot of people are really struggling to access the services that they need. And I think that's the things for me that really impacted. And I think that would be a similar picture to, you know, across everyone, whether it be in the UK or the US, whether it be straight or gay, whether it be black, white, Asian, whatever, you know, that's everyone's reaction to everything. And I think, you know, yeah, it's just a really tough one. It's been a really hard year. But for me personally, I've done well out of it. You know, I've got a new job that I'm starting in a few weeks. I've loved the working from home thing. I'm here for it all the time. I hate commuting. That is a thing I've learned about myself. Catching the tube, no thanks. But I think, yeah, it still has been a struggle, right? Like this last year has been really tough for everybody. And I think employers will need to be aware of that as we start coming out of things, as people start recovering, because that's going to be hard. Both tech and non-tech, to be fair.
I agree. So if you ever want to come to a really good tech conference, a Lesbians Who Tech conference, you're guaranteed to see women.
So this is what we were saying earlier as well. I think we said this off air. A lot of the groups, so you've got Lesbians Who Tech, Out in Tech, Women in Tech, all of that sort of thing. They are great and they have a huge presence in the US, but I've not seen a lot here in the UK. And I think especially as people can't travel, that is tricky, right? And there is a community of technology enthusiasts and workers over here in the UK as well. We may not be as big as the US, but we are big over here. And I think that we need to look at that. I'm happy to help on that problem.
You know, if you build it, they will come.
Exactly. And I think that's the key, isn't it?
We've got to do this, Sophia. I feel like an allyship between us coming on, right?
I'll come visit.
I'm in.
Done. We're in.
There it is. See? And this is how a great idea gets started.
Yeah. I think it's a really important one. I think we should, I think it's something we need to look at over here in the UK, because we're not supporting our own industry, our own people enough, I think. Yeah.
And I like it.
Cool. Well, it's been a pleasure speaking to you both. I'm hoping that we can get this event off the ground, Sophia, and I actually, for sure, you're going to be coming. You're probably speaking at our event.
I'm coming.
Keynote speaker?
The one that hasn't been planned yet, but you're going to be there, and we're going to love it.
My passport is literally right here on my desk because I'm trying to go somewhere, anywhere.
Oh, well, look, thank you as well, you know, to Fiona and to the Diva team for hosting us. I think Fiona hopefully will come and close out the session for us. Fiona, are you there?